Good now, Shabbos, dear Chabura. Going through Kol HaTorah Kol live with the Rambam in our lead one Perek a day, and we are about to begin the third and final Perek of Hilchos Tzitzis. Where in this Perek, the Rambam is going to describe the requirements necessary in a bed that are required of a beged to make it obligated with tzitzis, the time of the mitzvah of tzitzis, the material that of which tzitzis is required of. And let's see it inside Zakter Rambam Halacha Alpha Perek Gimel of Hilchos Tzitzis. Ksus shechayev adam last but tzitzis min haTorah. Which garment is one obligated min haTorah biblically to make tzitzis? He ksus shesh la'arba kanfayim. If it has four corners, or yasser arba, or even if it has more than four corners, b'tiya midasa, the size of the beged that is considered a garment is sheiskaz b'rosh of ruba shel katan. It covers the head and the majority of the body of a child that is already capable of walking on his own in the marketplace. So he's already higher, he's already independent, and it covers his head and the majority of his body. He doesn't need someone to hold his hand and the leg. Now, the beged itself, the garment itself, needs to be from wool or of linen, which comes from flax, and wool is from sheep, from the livestock. Now, we're going to see that if the beged is from tzemer or pishtim, even if the corner is from a different material, for example, leather, it's still going to be chayiv tzitzis because the beged is still called, the garment is still called a garment biblically. Aval talish shel shar minik, you're going meshi, whether it's from silk or bigdei tzemer geffen, whether it's from cotton or bigdei tzemer gmalim, or the type of cotton that comes from camels, or from rabbit fur, and from the type of from the hair of goat skin. It is obligated, however, it's only rabbinic in nature. It's not biblical. This is in order a person should become lenient. But be'etzem in HaTorah, when it says al kanfei bigdeichem, when it says a beged, a garment, without specifying what type of garment, it's bepashas either from wool or from linen. Now, v'hushtim rubas or yoser al arba. This is providing, first of all, that it's square and it has at least four corners. And again, even this biblical mitzvah for other types of garments, it's only also that it has the same shear, the same measurement, which means a child that can already walk independently in the marketplace, this garment would cover his head and the majority of his body. Now, any time Torah refers to a garment and it refers to the garment stam without specifying what material it's made out of, it is made of one of the two, whether it's wool or linen. Halacha gimel al arba kanfos ksuscha, on the four corners of your garment. So the Torah specifies four corners, v'loy balas shoulders, but not if it has three. However, im kain balas arba v'loy balas chamish, you would think specifically four, and this denotes and excludes a garment that has five corners. Anything that covers you. So even if it has five corners or more, if so then why does it limit it to four? He says, 1 second, why is 5 yechayiv and 3 not? Both of them are not limited to 4. Within the 5, there already includes 4, so it's already obligated. When one is tying tzitzis to a garment that has more than 4 corners, you only need to tie, first of all, on 4 corners, and the corners to choose are those that are the farthest from each other. Halacha, it says al arba kanfos ksuscha, on 4 of the corners of your garment. Now, halacha dalet, ksus shel beged or knafel shel oir. What happens if the garment is of material, but the corners are of leather? He chayav is still obligated. However, the other way around, he shall oir, the garment itself is made out of leather, and the knafel shel beged, they just sewed on like patches. The 4 corners are from material. In that case, you go after the majority of the garment, Now, you would think, because the pasuk says Shneimar al kanfei big day, and you would think that it's not, it's not yours. Kamash along, Zakta Shneimar. The pasuk says al kanfei big day hem, on the corners of their garments, the plural. Therefore, a garment that belongs to two partners is chayev, is obligated. Doesn't say only your garment. Even though it does say ksuscha, but that comes to limit and to exclude if it's borrowed. The be'etzim it doesn't require. Until 30 days and consecutive days is brought in Shulchan Aruch. Then the strings, the fringes have to be made out of wool. How oxoshal pishtan, if the garment is made out of linen. So also the white, which is aside from the tchelis, which generally we said is from wool. In this case, all the white strings also have to be from linen, come from flax. Oshar begadim, however, all other garments, oisin lavan shall come in miminai, all other types of garments that we said are chayiv midrabanon. So you make the tzitzis from the same type and of material and the same strands and strings that the beged itself, the garment itself, made of. For example, that for a silk garb you make silk tzitzis. And if it's from goats here. So if the garment's goat's here, so the strings are from goat's here. The Imrat Talat says lavan l'shar kol minim mitzamer pishtan oize. However, all the other garments that are chayiv midrabanan, and if they're not wool and linen could be poiter also those garments. It means if you have from silk or nylon or whatever it is, you could still make, and the tzitzis not out of the same type, rather out of wool. This everybody does today. They wear the synthetic material, maybe the tzitzis itself, but the strings are made out of wool. Not that it was makbid, they should both be from wool. There's something special about wool and linen that they fulfill your obligation, whether the garment is made in the same of its type, means the same as the strings or not. However, all the other types of materials and strings, these strings will only pater if it's the same type as the garment itself. However, if the strings are not the same type as the beged itself and the strings are not from wool linen, they cannot fulfill the obligation of tzitzis. You need different. We said that wool works for any other garment. What happens if the garment's linen and you want to make the strings out of wool, and here you have your fancy garment that is royal din of shatnez. Shatnez is wool and linen together, or the other way around, the vice versa. Chutei pishton, the wool is from linen, the strings are from linen. B'ksushal temer, and a wool garb, a wool cloth. The afal bishu lavan levade beloy tchelas, even though it's lavan alone without tchelas. Now, he says the truth is you should know. B'dinu sheyeh muter. Be'etzim the Torah it overrides this chiyuv. Shashatnas muter linyan tzitzis. That shatnas has been overridden by the chiyuv, the obligation to put tzitzis, and the loisa say as well. Shrei tchelas tzemer, because tchelas, how do we know that it overrides? We explain that tchelas be'etzim is wool, and this the Torah clearly allowed on and not only allowed, required for a beged. And we said beged stam includes also linen. So you see clearly that the mitzvah of tchelas has been permitted even in a case of shatnez. Let's sit this override. If so, why is it not? Why don't you see that people actually do this? Because it's possible to do it from the same type. You have a biblical command, a positive command, and a prohibition. If you're able to have them both coexist, if you're not able to, then the tzitz is overridden by shatnez. We're afraid lest the person wear the tzitz also after hours. That's in the chiv of she'enos man chiv tzitzis, as we're going to soon see. The time for tzitzis, the time frame for tzitzis is dafke by day. And if he wears it by night, which is not chiyus tzitzis, then to over aloisase be'es mitzvah, you're transgressing a prohibition without a good enough reason. There's no positive command that you're fulfilling at that point. Shechayv tzitzis by yom v'loy b'layla. The obligation is dafke by day. Why? Shenamar, the pasuk in Parashat Tzitzis says, or re'isa moisos chartam b'shas, and Chacham learn b'shas ter'iyah is that's when you're chayiv tzitzis, when people generally see. Now he says, note. A person that's blind is also obligated in tzitzis. The fact that it says or is the fact that others see it, that already fulfills the obligation. But the fact, that sets the time frame. Now, muter la'adam lilbash tzitzis balayla. It's not considered bal toisiv. One is allowed to wear by night. Bein bechor, bein b'Shabbos, whether it's weekday or Shabbos. However, one is not allowed to make the bracha of tzitzis by night. So at what point is it morning enough to be considered zman tzitzis and you can make the bracha? In the morning. When one is able to differentiate and see the distinction between the color white of the tzitzis and the blue. The Ketan Baruch at that point, what bracha is? Baruch Hashem Lakein Malcham must do the Eibush to the King of the universe. Asher Gidshanu B'Mitzvahs, that you have sanctified us with your mitzvahs, your commandments, Tzivanu. The Sata B'Tzitzis, you have commanded us to wrap ourselves in tzitzis. And as long as you wrap yourself, you garb yourself by day, that means throughout the duration of the entire day. The bracha of tzitzis is while putting it on to wear it, not while preparing it and making it. It says taka mitzvah to make tzitzis, but that wasn't the mitzvah. The mitzvah the Eibishter wants that you should wear it. So the scribes you should make it in order to wear it. But the mitzvah is to wear it, therefore the bracha is only for wearing and not for making. One is allowed to come into the bathroom and the bathhouse wearing tzitzis. It's not a chayfetz like tefillin, like a sefer Torah, like a mezuzah. And to the extent that be'etzem, it doesn't need gneza. One is not a b'vayish. Our minhag is taket yet to be goyness, as we'll see. To the extent that if part of the white strings get ripped off or tchelas or the blue, zerker be'ashpa, you could throw it even to discard it. It doesn't have essential kedusha in the physical object. It helps you fulfill a mitzvah and remember the Eibishter, but it's considered tashmish mitzvah. Now, one is not allowed to, one is prohibited from selling tzitzis, a talis that has on its fringe, tzitzis properly done. You know, sell tagoy till you undo the knots and you open it completely. Why so? Not because you're denigrating it by selling it and you're lowering the level status of its holiness of kedusha. But we're afraid for a very technical reason. Maybe he's going to wear it. He's going to go. He thinks it's a yid. Again, and he may come to harm him and kill him. Now, women, slaves, and children, which they are generally exempt from all mitzvahs that have a time frame. Biblically, they're part of mitzvahs. However, Chachamim, rabbinically, the Rabbanim instituted Shekol Katan Eidel Zativ. Second child reaches the age that he's able to dress himself. The Zativ Chayiv Tzitzis is obligated to wear tzitzis, and this is Kedei L'Chanchav mitzvahs to educate him towards mitzvahs. Now, what happens if not just children? That's okay. One day they're going to grow into it. What happens if women or slaves that they'll never grow into it in Indian? Not after they'll be freed. So they are allowed to however below bracha without a bracha. All other mitzvahs that be'etzem women are exempt from, in Ratzlah says Aisan below bracha, they want to do without a bracha, and Menachem biyad. There are certain mitzvahs on which they even do make a bracha. Now, tumtum v'adreginos chayavim bekulam misafek. A tumtum, in which case you can't discern if it's a male or female. The simanim are covered. Or androginos, the one that has both. Both of them are patur. Are chayiv misafek, because we're in doubt. Maybe it's going to be discovered that they are, and lo and behold, they're male. And the Chayiv tzitzis, but being that it's a suffix, ain't eisen mevarchin, al eisen blei bracha. They put it on without a bracha because it's a suffix. Suffix bracha is lahaka. Halacha yud. Hey, Achiyah mitzvah tzitzis. How exactly does one go about the mitzvah tzitzis itself? Kol m'shchayiv lasas mitzvah. Anyone that is obligated, imiskas b'ksus haroy l'tzitzis. If you're planning to wear a garment that is obligated, has the four corners, has the size that we mentioned, yatel tzitzis v'chayiskas. But first, tie on tzitzis, and then you wear it. Wrap yourself and dress yourself in it. If he wore it without putting tzitzis, has transgressed the positive command. However, you should know that it doesn't become chai. What happens? You bought the bag, you didn't put on tzitzis yet. You're over. No. Even if they're right to tzitzis, as long as you never put it on, Menachem, they're just sitting by you. Every person that wants to make tzitzis himself has a bag with four kanfas sitting by him until he finish putting on tzitzis. There's no isser to own it. The isser is to wear it. Shein nechayiv as a talis al chayiv as ha'ish sheyesh l'talis. Sorry, yeah, because it's not the chayiv on the garment that this garment is not allowed to exist without tzitzis. It's chayiv on the person that has the talis that's planning to use it. Halacha yud aleph. Afal b'shein adam chayiv liknais like talis ol satev b'kadesh yas but tzitzis. It should be known that the Torah just said if you have a garment that has four corners, you put on tzitzis. If you don't own such a garment, happy go lucky. That's the nishtam tan tzitzis. So be'etzem, that's min halacha. Still, ein roy l'adam chas you have to ask mitzvah. Do not exempt yourself from this mitzvah by making one corner round and the like. You should be wearing tzitzis. You should try, toil, invest, and make sure you're always wearing a beged that is chai b'tzitzis and wear it properly. Why? You should do this mitzvah because this reminds you of all the mitzvahs as Ram is going to say next halacha. In time of davening, it's even more important. And that's why even though we wear a talis cotton, but a talis gadol, we put it on in time of davening. Why? It is despised and noteworthy for the negative. For a person that considers himself a Talmid Chacham, a learned Yid, to daven and he's not wrapped in a talis. Because it's a person that davens a talis and film, it's testifying that there's an Eibush there. If you have the ability to stand testimony and you don't, there's something off. Final halacha for today and the final halacha for this series of Hilchos Tzitzis. Zok the Rambam halacha yud beis la'olam yeh adam zar b'mitzvah tzitzis. A person should forever be very scrupulous and very careful with the mitzvah of tzitzis. The Torah equated it and so to speak weighed it, made it equal of a talaba kol mitzvahs kulon and made all the mitzvahs dependent on it. How so? The Torah says shenamar isa moisai. Torah says when you see the tzitzis you're wearing, you'll remind yourself all the mitzvahs that Eibishter. So Sai Torah compares them, and Sai gives you the reason that it's in order that you should remember and do all the mitzvahs. Slik hilchas tzitzis. We have finally B'Shal Tov concluded halachas of tzitzis. Yishakoyach Gadol, Rabbi Nemirovsky, and all of you, dear Chabura, going to Kol HaTorah Kol Alive, for joining us through this cruise through the entire Torah Shabbat with the Rambam and our lead. One parak, they have a wonderful Shabbos.